Today on Marital Monkey Mania. Deny yourself of these 7 things and watch how happy your spouse is. Coming right up on
Marital Monkey Mania.
Hello everybody and welcome to another week of Marital Monkey Mania. Today we are getting to the second half of our pre-recorded interview with Jennifer Waddle, who wrote the article Deny Yourself These 7 Things and Watch How Happy Your Spouse Is. We pick up in the interview where we are talking about learning to listen.
Because what happens when you're quick to speak and slow to listen? When you do it backwards, remember there's an order for everything, and God lays it out plain.
Mm-hmm.
When you're quick to speak, if you're talking, you're not listening.
That's right.
So let's go to the first point. I want to hear that first point again.
Yeah, so pray and ask God to help you listen more than you speak. And I do this all the time, not just with my husband, but with my friends. And even before we started this interview today, I just always say, Lord, help me to listen more than I speak.
Well, you're the interviewee, so I need you to kind of speak some more. So not to counteract your prayer, but
yeah, but so often we're already thinking about what we want to say next, and we're not really listening. And our spouses pick up on that, and they're smart. They're our life partners. They're the ones that we're one with. They know when we're not listening. We are.
It's a great point. So, point number 2. Go ahead and read it again, please.
Ask your spouse about their day before you tell them about yours. And, this probably comes from 20-some years of being a stay-at-home mom where, my husband will walk through the door and I just want to bombard him about what went right, what went wrong. Here are the children. This is what I need from you. And really, I've learned the hard way that they need to vent.
Yes. So, good point.
And it really matters, and it doesn't take long.
No. And the thing is, you still get to tell about your day. You just have to wait until the spouse is finished. So you both get to talk, but you've made a point that what they have to say is more important than what you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, point number 3. How many are there again? 6?
Yes. So point
6.
number 3 is turn off your phone and look them in the eye as they talk.
Beep, beep, beep. Sorry, let me grab this text message. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Repeat that, Jennifer. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just, when people are scrolling on their phone and going, yeah, they're not listening. And it's rude. I've done it to other people. I regret it. It's not good. We've got to turn off our phones, especially when it comes to reconnecting with our spouses at the end of the day.
Yes. When I've gone through marriage counseling before I got married, they would say this: the 3 things that can destroy a marriage: sex, money, family. They need to add technology to that.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Amen. They sure do. Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
I'm sorry about the voice, folks. What's your husband's name?
Jim.
Jim. Jennifer and Jim are having a conversation. Jim's talking to Jennifer. Jennifer's text message goes off, and she picks the phone up, reads it while he's talking. That is no different than somebody actually walking up, interrupting Jim to talk to Jennifer, and then her focusing on him, and Jim standing there like, hello?
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference.
Yeah, that's a good word picture. You're right.
So, and we actually are going to be talking a little bit more about text messaging and phones in just a minute, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
So let's go to point number 4 since we have that one on the back burner.
Yeah, so point number 4 is pretty simple. It's resist the urge to interrupt. And that goes along with just really listening to what they're saying before you speak and not trying to come up with what you're going to say next while they're talking.
I did not ask you about the verse on the phone thing, but I can remember it. It was treat others like you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm. So point number 5 was resist the urge to make your opinion known. Mm-hmm. And I really wrote that from a sense of, again, not that you can't discuss or voice your opinion. That's not what I mean. I just mean that when your spouse is talking and you're trying to do a good job of listening, if they're trying to tell you something about how they feel or something important and you jump in with your opinion about the situation, that is really a conversation closer a lot of the time because it's just going to shut the other person down. And I really think that when our spouses are talking, they just really need to be validated. They really need, we need to have more empathy than we do opinions at that point. And then if they ask us, if our spouses say, what do you think about that? Yeah, perfect time to let them know what you're really thinking. But until that point, we really just need to kind of zip it and really resist the urge to make our opinions known.
Yeah.
Or for me in particular, if my husband's sharing about some kind of difficulty he's having at work or whatever, he really just needs me to listen. He doesn't need my advice. And when I give my opinion and I'm quick to jump in and say, well, you should have done this or you should have said that, he doesn't need that right then. He just needs to vent for a little bit. And that really goes into point 6 where I said, repeat what your spouse is telling you to let them know that you heard them. And I think that's really wise, especially when, we're having a great conversation, we're truly listening, and then we're repeating a little bit of what they said to let them know that we did hear, I heard you say this. I really did hear what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, and the validation thing, everybody wants to be validated. Everybody wants to know that what you say is important enough to them because you want to talk about it.
That's right.
They will listen. It's like, you're interested in this. And my wife and I had this conversation. She even said it yesterday. She was telling me about something, and I know what it was. There's no reason to go into it, but she was saying that, and she says, oh, I repeated myself over and over. I'm sorry. I said, it's okay. It interests her, so it interests me. This is a word of encouragement for those who have a spouse that likes to talk about stuff, and sometimes they repeat themselves, and three-peat themselves, and four-peat themselves. That's okay. Listen, guys, I have been a widower. If they tell you something 4 times in one day, thank God that spouse is there telling you for the 4th time that day. Don't take that for granted. Cherish that.
No, that's awesome. And that goes back to gratefulness, being grateful for the spouse that you have that is talking to you, whether you're interested in the topic or not.
Well, if it's interesting to them, like my wife, if she's fascinated with her hair. I love you, honey. I know she's listening. She's really particular about her hair, and she likes to tell me about the products that she uses. I shave my head. So as a single, I wouldn't have a care in the world about shampoo. I shave my head. But my wife wants to talk about it, and I like to listen because that's my wife. And if it's important to her, what does God say? I am concerned with the little things that you care about. Nothing's too small for God to care about. Why can we not do that with our spouse? Shampoo is not a big deal to me. I don't need it. But she talks about it. Therefore, I'm going to listen because that's my wife. Yep.
And that's a great practice. That's a great attitude.
Well, it's either that or she body slams me, so I'm going to listen. Attitude's one thing. I don't do it by choice. I'm threatened. I'm joking, folks. No more emails, please. I have a different perspective than a lot of people because I have a way, this legally blind guy has a way of looking at things with a wide view because of what I've experienced. So when you're griping, I want to reiterate it. When you are griping because your spouse is telling you something you don't care about, put that stinking attitude to the side, tune up the ears, and be thankful she is there or he is there. Because let me tell you something. I woke up on a Monday and I went to work. I woke up on a Tuesday planning a funeral. Don't take your spouse for granted. Don't. Okay, there you go. Done with that.
No, that's awesome. Wisdom, yes.
So now that we've got all of that out of the way, and I've rambled and rambled, the next one, we're getting down to the really deep weeds now. Deny the refusal to be intimate.
Yep. So
I am not talking during this one. This is where I will listen.
Well, besides financial issues and money issues in marriage, denying our spouses of intimacy can literally tear our marriages apart. And it goes against the Bible.
Absolutely.
I think I listed 1 Corinthians 7:5 here that says, do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer. But then come together again so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control.
So powerful. So powerful.
It really says it all. And it's a biblical, principle that works, because God knew, He knows how weak we are, and He knows that there should be very few reasons why we don't come together. And that would be basically to pray.
Yes.
And I think this point really goes kind of hand in hand with growing lazy in the relationship. And if you've been married for much time at all, that's really kind of what starts to happen, is there's this laziness and complacency and, I'm really tired, I had a long day, and bad habits, basically, is what it boils down to in a lot of senses. Now, there might be deeper issues where, couples really, really need to seek out some wise counseling. And I know that happens in marriages all the time, and I'm not against that one bit. I think that's wise to talk with other couples who can really guide your marriage through some serious intimacy issues. But really, for most of us, it is just a matter of laziness, of not making our spouses a priority, of putting everything else first, so that by the end of the day, we are worn out and we are not going to have anything with it. And that can tear our marriages apart. And it really should not be that way. Because when we go back to living first for God and then for our spouse, really, tying all those scriptures in and making each other a priority, that we've really got to work hard on that to make that happen. But I do think that when we deny ourselves the right to avoid intimacy, it's only going to draw our relationship closer, especially when we have healthy communication surrounding intimacy in our marriage. And that alone is a huge deal, to be able to communicate our needs, communicate our desires, just talk about it, have fun with it, just, discuss things.
When you invest in your spouse, you're not going to want to deny the intimacy. You're going to want to be with them, because it's such a special union that God created specifically for husband and wife. The Song of Solomon is the way we need to be with our spouses, period. They were nuts over each other, just crazy about them. Why do we not do that? We did it before we married them.
That's right.
And now we don't want to. Come on.
There's no reason for that to fade away. And yeah, there probably are going to be dry seasons, or seasons when it's just, you've grown comfortable with one another. And that's awesome. It's good to be comfortable in the sense that you know each other so well. But it's not good in the sense that you grow so comfortable that you become complacent.
That's taking it for granted. That's what I call it. Complacency to me is taking them for granted.
And just as the whole financial point, you were saying that it really takes investment, and it takes, discussion and open communication. It's the same thing with intimacy. It takes a deliberate investment, and it takes a lot of communication, and it really comes down to setting aside your own habits, desires, and preferences sometimes, and just lean into your spouse. Be grateful they're there, that you have them to be intimate with.
And that's what makes marriage so unique, and which is why God designed it like He did. That intimacy is so unique and only for the spouse that you're married to. That's it. Nobody else gets that except that one person. That is awesome. About this subject, this is so cool to me. If you look in Genesis 4, chapter 1, depending on which version you use, I'm going to use a specific version for a specific reason. Adam had relations with Eve. If you add 3 more letters to the word relations, you get relationship. And you need relationship for the relations to be fantastic.
Amen
it's not
to that.
It's not I'm the man, I'm going to work, I'm coming home, watching the ball game. Wife, you better be ready. That is not relationship. That is selfishness. So when it says that Adam had relations with Eve, relationship equals great relations.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great version to read. And I love how you added just 3 letters. Those 3 letters really brings it full circle into a relationship that is it goes far beyond intimacy, doesn't it? Relationship deals with physical, emotional, spiritual, I mean, every aspect of the marital union.
So, point number 6, and I know I've gone out of order from your article. I don't know. I just felt like some of these things have become bigger problems. Not that they're all not, but, the next one is scrolling social media. Deny yourself, scrolling social media. Now, in reading your article, you've mentioned going to restaurants and couples never talk to, they're not talking to the person they're with. And that's not just marriage. That's just social.
It is. You just see people on their phones everywhere. Friends together, spouses together. I mean, it really truly has become a dividing line between people and relationships. And I think if we could just deny ourselves scrolling social media when we're with other people, just put it away, we will be fine. I mean, do you remember the days before we even had answering machines? And you would call someone and you would let it ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. And when they didn't answer, you just hung up and you tried again later. Right. That's how it used to be. I had an answering machine back then. I don't know. I'm thinking that's when that came out.
Yeah, and then what happened when you did have one? You left a message, and then what happened? They got back to you when they got back to you.
That's right. And it was often hours and hours later before you even heard the message. And you know what? We were fine.
Yep, we survived it. We survived it. Well, you put kids in front of phones to be their nanny. Well, that kid now is stuck on that phone, and they're not creating and developing a blessing or gift they might have because they're too busy playing on their cell phones.
I know.
It's really sad. There's nothing wrong with cell phones. But
I'm grateful for it.
Absolutely. But when it's overdone and takes place of a lot of different things, then it becomes a problem.
And I've heard of marriages that have taken it a step further where they will keep their phones in another room at night. I mean, they'll probably have their ringer on, I assume, but they, at a certain point every evening, they put their phones away on a charging dock or whatever, and it's away from them so they can spend quality time together.
And the key word is quality time. No, what is on that phone that is so important? What's the emergency? If it's an emergency, I guarantee you nobody's going to text.
That's right.
It's going to be a phone call. So if your phone beeps, who cares? Get it when you get it.
I used that verse, just that real simple verse, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that was Luke 6:31. And I have to say, kindergartners learn this verse as a virtue. It is, we know this already, but just to simply do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Put away the phone, look your spouse in the eye, and really pay attention and connect.
Connect is a great word. That is a great, great word. It's a huge problem. I mean, I hate to say it. I had a friend of mine. Now, it was a neighbor, actually, but I knew fairly well. Killed in a car accident. Texting. That whatever was on that phone was so important that it caused her to cross the double yellows and hit a truck head on. And it's sad that phones are that important to people that they can't even drive a 2,000-pound piece of metal without having to have their hands on it. What is so important? It's like you said, there was a day we didn't have all that stuff. And we survived it, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
I love what you said, Jennifer. Connect.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's true. And that's why I included it in this article, is because social media is such a huge part of life today. And it really can be a good thing, but it can also be very hurtful to our marriages when we're not careful.
So we're going to go to the last one. And this one I found very, very interesting. And this is deep. We kind of touched on it in a way when we said men are the head of the house.
Yeah, so I have demanding spiritual maturity. And this goes along with the tendency to judge our spouse's spiritual maturity and where we think they ought to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this isn't right, because the spouse who is on the receiving end of that is either going to feel judged or become resentful or defeated in their faith. They're going to just start feeling defeated all the way around. And I say this only because I'm human, and this is how I really treated my spouse during the first many years of our marriage. And part of it was because we had 4 kids, and we were homeschooling, and I was with them all day, and I really, really wanted my husband to pour into them spiritually because he has so much to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of that, my husband's not a big talker. He's a quiet, gentle, solid, leading guy. When you ask him, he will answer, but he's not real quick to jump, in and give his opinion and do all that. And so I took that as a sign of spiritual immaturity when in reality, him and I just needed better communication.
Yes.
He far surpassed me spiritually, but I was treating him as if he hadn't yet arrived. And I cannot tell you how hurtful and destructive that was early on in our marriage.
One thing I like about doing these types of things is that we also get the perspective from the man. And, we hear a lot of these relationship things, mostly women. I guess that's another reason I feel so passionate about it, because when you study, you realize that men have a huge responsibility. And you were just talking about that and your husband. I guarantee you I've come across to my wife as a spiritual egomaniac. And there's a point to where you have to know that what you're saying necessarily isn't wrong, but how are you saying it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
Amen.
that's where I've had to kind of step back, because one thing in my life, people would probably scoff at this that know me. I've not always been very confident. I've had a lot of insecurities, and walking in authority that Christ gives me and walking even in confidence is not something I've ever been good at doing. I might have been able to hide it, but I've always had insecurities. Until recently, like in the last few years, have I learned to walk in the authority God's given me and to lead my wife like I'm supposed to. But when you do that, you can definitely come off with I know more than you, I'm your leader, shut up and listen.
Well, and sort of that holier than thou attitude, or
right.
Yeah.
And that has never truly been my heart or intent of my heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are husbands. We're supposed to encourage our wives. Mm-hmm. And I love learning stuff and God giving me things and then taking it to my wife and saying, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
But if I take it to her with the wrong tone or what I just said, basically, she could take it as like, look, I'm not where you are yet. Why are you talking to me like, why are you acting like you know everything? So we have to be careful as men to make sure that we're sensitive and gentle in leading our wives. Not that she can't do it herself, but we're still leaders.
Absolutely.
We're spiritual leaders especially.
Mm-hmm. From the wife's perspective, we have to be careful that we don't shut our husbands down, because we may have some high expectations of them leading a certain way, and when they don't, we dismiss them or make them feel less than or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think that's why I included Micah 6:8 as the verse for this particular paragraph. It says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." And when I took a step back from judging my husband's spiritual walk, he met all of these qualifications right here, because he does justly, he loves mercy, and he walks humbly with God. Mm-hmm. And when I started building him up instead of tearing him down, when I started asking thought-provoking questions and asking for his wisdom in the nicest, kindest of ways. He was more than happy to pour into me and into our kids. So you are 100% right. It matters how you say things, how you ask things, and instead of demanding that they rise up and do something super spiritual. That's just not fair to them.
Right. And we all grow. If we all became Christians on the same day, we still all grow at different paces. So this person might be ahead of you, but it doesn't diminish where the other person is. They're just growing a little slower.
That's right.
And here's this actually happened today, the day of this interview. My wife was having an issue with a person, and she came to me for advice. How do you handle it when you tell them the right thing to do, and they absolutely slam you for it? And I said, and this is kind of a paraphrase of the verse, a sharp rebuke from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You tell them the truth. And if they can't handle it, that is not your problem.
Yeah.
And then she says, what verse is that? Where can I find that? You know what? That, to me, it blessed me. My wife wanted some spiritual guidance on how to handle a situation when she's trying to give this person Christian advice, but wants no part of it. So instead of handling it on her own, she came to me. And that blessed me because that meant there's an aspect of trust there.
And that is a perfect example of not demanding spiritual maturity, but encouraging spiritual maturity. And I think that's exactly the place that I came to with my husband, not just regarding the kids, but also regarding me. And now he's my springboard when I need advice, just like what your wife did with you. I just go to him when I'm worried about something or anxious about something. I need him to put things in perspective for me. He's there, and he rises up to the challenge easily. Whereas before, I would just be irritated at him he can't read my mind, right? But I would expect him to somehow know exactly what I needed at the exact time. And it simply wasn't fair to him to demand a spiritual maturity of him. It's not my place. It's not.
Yeah.
It's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the one who grows us up. It's our duty to build each other up in the faith and walk humbly with God as an example to our spouses.
Yes. And let me say this. What we're talking about is this whole marriage thing summed up. We do this together. And husbands, lead your wives spiritually. You need to know the Word. You need to be able to guide her in the Word. But the Bible also says, study to show yourself approved, which means women, you've got a responsibility to learn and study on your own. But the men have the responsibility. If the wife says, I don't understand this, well, then you come to the husband and say, can you maybe shine a light on this or maybe do a little research on this? She should do it too. Don't get me wrong. But then you put your heads together and you never know, husbands, you might learn something from the wife.
Exactly. And what a unifying thing to do that. I mean, I would even venture to say that leads us toward intimacy with one another because we're reaching deeper into the spiritual, not just the physical, but emotionally, spiritually. We're really gleaning from each other.
Yes. Well, Jennifer, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope that somehow, some way, in the midst of the craziness, that somebody got something out of this and they can start denying themselves and kind of focusing on that spouse and seeing those marriages improve, huh?
Yeah, and I'm going to keep working on it too.
What a great amount of information Jennifer has brought us with that article she wrote. Absolutely awesome. Please check out her website, www.encouragementmama.com. If you want to hear the full unedited version of that interview, you can go to anchor.fm/maritalmonkey and you will see Relationship Talk with Jennifer Waddle on that page. You can listen to the entire interview there. As always, thanks for listening to Marital Monkey Mania. Get a hold of us if we can help you in any way, maritalmonkey.com, or give us a call, 833-8-JUNGLE. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and have a great day.